Hello and welcome to another episode of Mysteries with a History, where I'll take you on a wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. There's more to this world than most think or believe. Mysteries that stretch back into murky epochs of time, that hint of other realms, other worlds, and other intelligences. We're on this journey together. With each episode, we will peel away the layers to look for the truth. Canada is a vast country, having 1.6% more land mass than the United States, covering over 9.98 million square kilometers, and much of it is rural, unexplored, mountainous forests, with only 2% of its actual landmass being significantly populated. From stories of encounters with cryptids such as Bigfoot, lake monsters, the Wendigo, and other oddities, to UFO sightings and UFO hotspots, to ghost towns and haunted hotels, Canada has a rich history of UFO and paranormal activity, cryptid sightings, phantom lights, phantom boats, mystery booms, werewolves, and First Nation lore, myth, and legend. There's a lot to cover today. So, before we get started, let's bring in Jimmy Church of Fade to Black Radio. Jimmy, how's it going?
I'm trying to buy my way into this show is what I'm trying to do here. Okay. Hey, Cristina, how you doing?
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. And so my Luddite butt, how do I get my green alien? I want my green alien.
Well, you're already now a member. You're able to use the green emoji alien. That's very specific for YouTube members.
And how do I do so how do I do this? Okay, so now I got that popped in there, and then I can do a green alien emoji.
Yeah, it's going to be at the very, very top of the regular emojis. There's ones that I specifically created.
I ain't got them.
No, you definitely have them.
I got the YouTube one is first, and it's just I don't see any green alien heads anywhere here. I'm being deprived of my membership. I want a refund. How do are you sure I'm a member? How can you tell? My name is Black. Let's help everybody else through this so they can also do what I am trying to do here. Help us through this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a good amount of people here that can help. Annie, hello from the UK. And Nature Cam says, sorry, Cristina, I meant goth, not good. I'm using the mic, but you're looking very goth tonight. I almost put on purple lipstick too to like finish the outfit, but I was like,
that would have been cool.
I thought it would be too much. But it's the first day of fall or autumn, whatever you want to call it, and it's officially beanie season. It's officially beanie season. But Jimmy, you know, with your YouTube membership, you signed up as a Fade to Black with your Fade to Black channel, and now this one's another username.
What do you mean it's another username?
Because this one that you're using is just Jimmy Church, but the one that you logged in with to be a member was your Fade to Black channel.
So how do I log in under somebody else?
Well, you can't log in as somebody else.
Well, why am I Jimmy Church and not Fade to Black Radio? That doesn't make any sense.
I didn't know.
Okay.
Well, right. Jimmy, we have.
Then, if this is another name, how do I become a member under this name?
Well, maybe you have 2 YouTube accounts, so you're able to just.
I have 10.
Okay, that's a lot.
But how do 11? But how do
So just click the join. Just click the join button at the bottom of the window on YouTube.
Okay.
On the YouTube video or even the YouTube channel.
So I do what now at the bottom?
Okay, so at the very bottom of the video,
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's going to say join. But while you're doing that, I'm going to get started with today's show. There's a lot to cover when it comes to Canada. I was so taken aback by doing the research for today's show. And I kind of want to start with one that I've never heard of.
You're skipping over formalities here and tradition. So let's back up. Cristina, what a great subject today. Canada. Where did that come from?
Last week's show.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the mine in Canada.
Oh, yeah. I remember
And
that.
then I was like, Canada's a good idea. Let's do that one. And it's so pretty. They get a bunch of snow. I love the snow with all of my heart. I am so excited for winter, but also just literally the season change of all the trees changing colors, amazing, and wearing the same scarf the whole season, which is awesome. But
so yeah, I get that, and that makes a lot of sense. But here's the deal: so everybody from Canada, especially in the chat room, that's going to see this video later, they get all excited, and Canada being talked about. This is awesome, and then they say to themselves, they better not bring up Wayne Gretzky, and so I'm not going to bring up Wayne Gretzky. They're still upset about that, and I'm not going to bring up Wayne Gretzky. Wouldn't do that on this show. But and Cristina doesn't. Do you want to know about Wayne Gretzky?
no.
Okay. Okay. So, but here's the thing with Canada. There is some of the greatest, most documented situations when it comes to high strangeness, UFOs, ghosts, are in Canada. And they have, in my opinion, three of the biggest, most notable UFO events in the world, in history, and they all happened in Canada. The question is why? What is so special about Canada? And as we dive into this, and we're going to do it in 15 seconds, folks, I won't delay it. I think it's because Canada is wide open. It's sparse. It's such a large country, but if you go from like west to east, you've got Vancouver, and then you've got these cities as you go across, Edmonton, Alberta, and Winnipeg, and you go across, but everything else around those cities is wide open. Just wide open land. It is so sparsely populated. We could talk about Toronto. We could talk about Ontario. And I get that. But those are areas that are little specks on the dot surrounded by vastness. I've flown across the country many times, across Canada, and looked out the window of the airplane. And the one thing just pops into my mind over and over again. Just beautiful, open nature. There's nobody there. So is that the reason why? I don't know, but that's the one thing that keeps popping into my head, is that if you're going to come and check out this planet, go to a country like Canada, or an area like that where you can just go about your business, right? It makes a lot of sense to me. So lots of big things in Canada for sure.
There is, and I think the hottest time period for famous UFO sightings was 1967. So, but back to what you said about the population, about 98% of the population is crammed into 2% of the landmass. That's crazy. So the rest is like rural and unexplored for the most part.
Right.
So how many other UFO sightings might there be that people just aren't familiar with?
Thousands.
Probably.
Right? Thousands.
That's probably consistent across the globe. Michael, thank you so much. It says, hi both. I am gobsmacked by the size of Canada. But I know little about the country. Love that hat. Gobsmacked is my new favorite word. So I'm really happy that Michael touched on it. Thank you, my friend. That and puck wedgies.
You look cold.
I am freezing.
You're freezing?
Very cold. So I'm wearing like a sweater. on my arms.
Well, we'll see if it affects. You see, the cold usually speeds up brain activity.
Does it?
Yeah. If it's hot, you're like, right? You
That's
know.
true.
So, the cold allows spark. We'll see if you're sparky. We'll see if you're sparky today.
But I'm also seasonal, Like next I just gotta do is be basic and have like pumpkin spice latte or something. But today is officially the beginning of fall, and that's why
Yeah,
I have my
today's the
beanie
equinox,
on.
right? Today's the equinox. And a little bit of knowledge here. So north of the equator, which is us,
Right.
this is the beginning of fall and our introduction into winter, right? That's what today is. South of the equator, what is the equinox? Don't
Summer.
Google it.
Spring.
No. Spring. Well
I'm gonna
done.
say
Well,
spring.
you had a 1 out of 4 chance.
That's pretty good.
That's
25% chance.
you hit it. Okay. Anyway, yeah, it's spring south of the equator. Yeah, it's pretty trippy. Okay.
Tyler says the word puckwudgies has striked again already. John Aside, thank you so much. It says Canada is all Jason's quit's fault. Seriously.
I'm getting.
Thanks, John Aside.
I got to show you this, Cristina.
Okay.
I'm getting text about my Hawaiian body. There it is.
Oh, nice.
See, it's Hawaiian, doesn't it?
I see. I understand that now. Okay, because a little bit earlier on the phone, you were like, it's Hawaiian. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. But now it makes a bit more sense. Also, when you describe the colors to me, it makes sense. But Jimmy, a little earlier, the first thing you brought up when you mentioned Canada were the UFO sightings. So let's go ahead and start there. And we can save the other stuff for a little bit later. But let's probably touch on the most famous sighting in Canada before we get into some other ones. Do you know which one I'm referring to?
Well, to me, there are 3, but you can go probably with or 2. So it's either Falcon Lake or it's Charlie Red Star, one of the 2.
No, I was gonna say Shag Harbor. I think that one was the
Shag
first
Harbor.
one that I came across as the most famous for Canada, and from what I saw.
We can do Shag Harbor first. You know what? Let's just get. I have so much stuff to share with everybody, and so I just I kind of showed my cards, right? So much for poker face. Yeah, let's go with Shag Harbor.
All right. Do you want me to bring in the summary of the story?
Yeah. Why do you want to break with tradition today? What's the deal here, man? You're throwing me off my game. Let's see how good Jimmy is. I'm going to do the opposite of everything. I'm going to do the opposite.
I should just be opposite day, but
in Bizarro world, mysteries with Bizarro world today with my co-host Jimmy Church, who bought his way onto the show with super chat stickers. Okay.
So on October 4th, 1967, several residents of the village in Shag Harbor first noticed a rather strange grouping of orange lights. Tina, hi Tina, and all the moderators. Zenza, thank you so much for being here and moderating the chat. So several witnesses accounts indicate that there were 4 large lights that evening. 5 of these witnesses included a group of teenagers who watched these lights flashing in sequence for several minutes and then suddenly and rapidly dive in a sharp 45-degree angle towards the water's surface. So, to the amazement of the teens and other witnesses, on hitting the water's surface, the light did not immediately disappear beneath the water, but seemed to kind of float on the surface, approximately 1.5 miles from the shore. And the initial panic reaction of the observers was that they were witnessing the emergency ditching or crash of an airplane. That's why this story originally got its news, because the witnesses thought that it was an airplane that was crashing into the water, but what they saw, it didn't make too much sense. So the first report phoned into the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mountain Police, came from a young fisherman who told them that an airliner had gone into the bay. But the first reaction by the police dispatcher was that the young man had been drinking. However, after an immediate rash of 10 additional calls reporting the same incident, the police quickly recontacted the young fisherman for location details. But Jimmy, why is this story so weird? What happens next?
The whole thing is insane. Shag Harbor. Okay, now I'm going to get into the other reports that came in at the same time too, as well. I'll get to that in a second. It was the direction. It was the tracking of this flying object. You have that part. It was seen up and down the coast. It wasn't just in this area of Shag Harbor. That's the first thing. Second, craft entered the water. I'll get to what it did on the surface of the water in just a bit. Craft stays in the water over a few days. United States Air Force shows up on the scene. RCMP is there. The news is there. Television is there. Everybody is watching what is going on. And what appeared to be a second craft entered and pulled up to the first craft and started to repair it. And then after a few days, the lights were seen going through the harbor and out the other side and then disappearing. And that's how the incident ended. Hundreds and hundreds of witnesses. Now, here's the deal. Now, let's back up. What are we talking about? There was a Air Canada flight. Its flight number was 305. It was en route to Toronto while flying over Sherbrooke and Saint Jean, Quebec, at about 3,600 meters, 12,000 feet heading over to Halifax International Airport. Air Canada First Officer Robert Ralph pointed out to Captain Pierre Charbonneau on Flight 305 that there was something strange out of the left side of the aircraft at around 7:15 p.m. Of course, they reported it. They called into the tower. They said it was four lights. They were stationary. And then they focused on just one light. They wanted to know what the aircraft was, and it was stationary and acting so strangely. That was at 7:15 p.m. Then Daryl Dorey and his sister Annette and his mother were sitting on their front porch in Mahone Bay when they noticed a large object maneuvering above the southwestern horizon. Again, they called into the RCMP and reported this object. Later on that night, on a boat, the MV Nickerson out of Nova Scotia, that's the name of the boat, the MV Nickerson. Well, while standing at the wheelhouse of his vessel, Captain Leo Howard Mercy, was looking at four blips on his Deca radar that were stationary. Four blips on his radar on the boat. The entire crew of 20 fishermen stood on the deck and watched the object. Mercy radioed the Rescue Coordination Center and the harbor master in Halifax, and then filed a report with the RCMP outlining his sighting when they arrived in port. The Chronicle Herald, the local newspaper there, and all of the local radio stations reported a glowing object that had been seen by many people who had called their newsroom. They reported witnessing strange glowing objects flying around Halifax at around 10 p.m. Remember, the flight reported things at 7:15 p.m. And Captain Mercy did his reporting right after that. Now, assuming that an aircraft have crashed, within about 15 minutes, 2 RCMP officers arrived at the scene. The RCMP contacted a rescue coordination center in Halifax before any attempt at rescue could be made. And this is in the RCMP's report. The flying object, quote, with lights still glowing, started to sink and disappeared from view. That is okay. So now, Cristina, there were multiple reports of United States Air Force personnel in uniform on scene,
Right.
and how quickly they got there. The local news was there. The newspapers were there. The 4 kids that you were talking about, they were on the scene. Rescue boats from the harbor. This is a fishing village, right? And so they're sending out fishing boats with people on it to go out and see what they were looking for crash debris. Everybody was thinking it was an airplane, and that's fine. By the way, no airplane was found, no airplane parts, no bodies, nothing like that.
No airplanes reported missing either.
No, nothing. And so these fishing boats are out there, and they reported a strange foam.
That's right.
Floating in the water. And some of them claim that they scooped up the foam and checked it out. There were also reports of possible agencies of the United States were there. Nova Scotia is not that far from the United States, and was there? This is the other thing. Was there Air Force personnel already on station inside of Canada? That's another thing that has been alien foam. Yes.
Well, to give a little bit of context on that foam that was found, was that it was a very thick yellow type of foam. It didn't look like sea foam. And when the fishermen had looked at it, they're like, I've never seen anything like this. And I practically grew up on the water. This is very bizarre. And so the fact that you had mentioned that allegedly some had scooped it up and ran tests, I can believe that. Because if the fact that even the fishermen were confused by this, that's saying something. That it's not normal.
There were reports before we move on this case that the foam would disappear in their hands. Right? They could see it; it's floating on the water. It was thick foam, and then when they would try to collect it, it would dissolve.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like angel hair.
Oh yeah, same kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I've often made that comparison in my own mind's eye with angel hair and this strange foam, and the foam was all over the surface of the water. Many people talked about their astonishment with that, where they were expecting debris, crash debris, broken parts, and things floating. They didn't get that. They got this strange yellow foam. Now,
so that makes me question if it's a type of exhaust, like what people believe angel hair to be. For those that aren't familiar with this, I'll just give you a really quick summary. Angel hair is believed to be some type of exhaust that is, I guess, in a sense, secreted from UFO craft. It comes down. People have attempted to collect it because it looks kind of like spider webs. It's very thin. It's very wispy. There was one scientist, and the name escapes me. He put it in a jar and was going to take it to the lab. But as soon as he got to the lab, it had disappeared.
Yeah, it dissolved. It
had dissolved completely. And it sounds like with what you had mentioned about this type of foam, where people attempted to grab it and it dissolved or disappeared in the same sense, just like the angel hair. Could they be the same or similar?
Now there was so there were other reports that possibly a United States Navy submarine was brought in and brought into station and was observing things under the water. There's reports about that. We do know, and this is from the RCMP themselves, that they stood. I mean, right? The citizens of Shag Harbor, they're all standing watching what is going on for a couple of days. and that everybody had come to the conclusion that it was some kind of underwater repair that was going on. Remember, a second craft pulled up to the first craft, and they could see lights moving around, and they thought that they could see welding or some kind of activity going on under the water, and it was a repair mission. And this is what everybody had concluded. Was it UFO crash out of? One day I'm going to get up there. I want to go to Shag Harbor. I really do. We'll take the RV, but I do want to go to. I do want to go to Shag Harbor. So anyway, they watched this activity going on under the water, and when it was all over, the working stopped, and then they watched the craft cruise through under the water in Shag Harbor, and they watched the lights. I don't believe anybody saw it take off out of the water, but it did leave the harbor.
It's a pretty odd story, and I can understand why it's so famous.
Great
Deranged
story.
Lunatic, thank you so much for the super sticker. And Jessica as well, you are so sweet. I deeply, deeply appreciate it, because as we all know, it's going to go straight to the RV fund, which I'm keeping an eye out. There's a few that I'm liking, so we're going to see how that goes. But we have so much to cover, Jimmy. Let's jump over to another UFO sighting that happened in the same year, 1967. And this one is the Falcon Lake incident.
Yep. Big case.
This is a pretty wild case.
It's
and
wild,
one that we've covered before when we first started doing this show together. But for those that haven't seen some of the first episodes, we're going to cover it again today in depth. So, as I had mentioned, this incident happened in May of 1967, the exact same year as Shag Harbor, but a few months prior. And Jimmy, you know what? I'll let you give us the summary of this story.
Well, the whole case is around this witness, Stefan, right? Stefan Michalak. His friends call him Steve. Right, there he is with his burn marks. Okay. It was May 20th, 1967, Falcon Lake, and this area too as well. Just 1967 was a banner year for UFO activity up in Canada all the way through 1975. It was crazy. But anyway, so this is what he says. Well, let me. I'm going to do a summary before I get to his testimony, because it's crazy. It's nuts. It was within the White Shell Provincial Park in the Canadian province of Manitoba. The incident was investigated by various Canadian authorities, including the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Air Force, the Department of Health, the Department of National Defense, and American authorities, including the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization and the United States Air Force, as part of the Condon Committee. Dun, dun, dun. The incident has been dubbed Canada's best documented UFO case by CBC News in Canada. And Steve, said he was out, he was doing his thing, he's fishing, goofing around, right? And he looks up and he sees, and this is how he describes everything, 2 cigar-shaped UFOs. This is later. Take this off the screen. We're going to get back to that. Okay. Because his first sighting is 2 cigar-shaped UFOs with something on the top in the center of both. He said it was right in front of him, about 150 feet away, half a football field, 50 yards, 50 meters, 150 feet. That's very, very close. And they were glowing red, okay, at the time. And the one thing that he noticed was that there were humps. Now, he immediately... I'll get to some other stuff here in a second, but he immediately thought that it was the United States and experimental aircraft. Okay. That's where he went with this. Then he says, as he's watching this, and he's not thinking aliens. And by the way, in the end, after all of this, he died some time ago,
99.
1999. Yeah, sounds right. But like right up to his death, he said, no, I think it was the United States. He kept calling them Yanks, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was the Yanks. So, but anyway, so this is what happens. The two crafts separate. One lands and on this rock. And he said that as it landed, it morphed. It went from the cigar shape to a saucer shape. And that's the second, put up the drawing that you had. That's what it looked like when it landed. So then he was able to do a few things at this point. One, he observed that the craft looked like brown or black glass on the outside. He said no seams, nothing like that. But he said it would also change colors. The skin the outside of the craft was this glossy glass finish, but it would glow different colors. Okay. And then he said he could see inside of it. Now, there's two things that happened when he said that. So he was thinking he was looking into windows and he could see lights on the inside. So in this drawing here, that's what you see on the left-hand side. So that's the windows with the lights. To the right of that was a door that was open. So he goes up to the craft. Cristina, this is where it goes crazy town. He hears two people talking. And he believes they were human, that they were humans talking, although he couldn't understand what they were saying, but they sounded human to him. And he thought he was going to encounter the Russians or something, right? So I think he answers, or he asked them, he spoke a few different languages.
Yeah,
or knew for words, right?
Yeah, he spoke Polish, Russian, and then finally German to attempt and see that if the people that were in the craft were from any of those countries. But he referred to them as Yankee boys.
Yeah,
even though he couldn't see these entities, he could only hear them.
Are you German? So anyway, he was convinced that this was some kind of experimental craft. But then he gets a look inside and he says the thing is empty. He doesn't encounter anybody. And he didn't make any direct contact. And then the other craft flew off and was there for several minutes and then flew away. And that's pretty. So anyway, he gets close enough to get burned. Okay, so now let's go up to the other picture of him in the hospital, right there. So this is a very, 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 very famous photograph. There's many. There's another one of him with this very specific burn pattern on him. They suspect that it was a radiation burn. And there you go. It's a crazy pattern to how do I say this? It looks painful. That's all I gotta say.
Well, the first thing that came to mind for me, it looks kind of like when you're getting tested for allergies, how doctors, they make a row on your back usually to see, is it peanut butter? Is it, bees? Things like this. That when I saw this photo for the first time, that was the first thing that I thought of. But what's really odd about
Interesting. Could E.T. have done that? Testing him in the same fashion.
Interesting. I didn't think about that, but just that kind of pattern is very bizarre. But what's crazy about this story is that Steve here is he's a type of mechanic. And so when he was traveling here to Falcon Lake, he had brought his like welding gear. He brought gloves, he bought goggles. For what reason, I'm not too sure.
He
But
bought his face mask
he
with
brought,
his
yeah, he brought everything.
helmet. Well, welder's helmet, I think they call it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when first off, he began drawing the craft. He saw this, he kind of hid behind the bushes and he starts drawing it because this craft was here for a long period of time. Then, as he puts on his gloves and his goggles and stuff like this, he walks up to the craft. He hears someone speaking or people speaking, and then he touches the craft. That is the wild part.
And burned his hand. I think he said it melted his gloves.
It melted. Yep, that's correct. It melted his gloves, and he had this like huge whiff of sulfur. That's what he could smell when he got close to it. And then at this moment, after he had touched it, after his gloves practically melted, almost melting his fingertips as well, he became very disoriented and nauseous, and he stumbled through the forest and then he vomited. So he eventually made his way back to his hotel room in Falcon Lake and then caught a bus back to Winnipeg. But when he gets to the hospital to be treated for whatever he had, that's when he realized his burn marks on the chest and later his stomach, which were raised in sores and a grid-like pattern, as we're seeing in this photo now. And for weeks afterward, he suffered from diarrhea, headaches, blackouts, and weight loss. But the weirdest thing about this story, I mean, everything about this is a bizarre alleged account. But one of the oddest things is that when his son came into the room to check up on him, his son had even mentioned that the smell of sulfur was coming out of every pore in his body. That is what was very odd. Unaccountable Fool Sender, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, "You're great. Watching from Calgary, Alberta, Canada." Nice. Thank you.
I am enjoying my frustration. It says I am a member. It says I am a member. It says I've been a member for 14 days and I'm entitled to all of these perks. And you can click on the perks thing. And I see that. And then after a month, but my symbol has not changed. I cannot emoji my alien dudes. I'm so upset about this. The Falcon, the case was so investigated by just about every official governing body in Canada that could go in and jump into something like this and then do an investigation. Everybody did. We're talking about health, the military, the United States, the Condon Committee, the Air Force. Everybody was involved in this case. Never
Right.
debunked. Never
Nope. Nope. And to add to that, there was a book written about his encounter called When They Appeared. And there Steve talks about stating, "I kind of regret telling the public about this because I got way too much attention for something that I just kind of wanted to be left in the shadows." However, he brought his whole family from Poland to Canada. When he was living in Poland, he was a policeman.
Mm-hmm.
We need to keep that in mind. When you are in law enforcement, you see things differently. You process your environment a little bit different. And for the most part, you're usually a little bit more rational. You're looking for the answers as fast as possible, but you're not jumping to conclusions. And I think that's one reason to why Steve said, "I'm open-minded to them being extraterrestrials, but I don't think that's the case because there's no proof saying that, but there's also no proof saying otherwise."
And now I'm looking at the clock. Can we stay with UFOs for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, because we have to. I want to talk about the lady in red. Okay, so we're gonna get to the. Cristina just loves them ghosts, you know.
Ghost stories are great, and all legends and folklore are fantastic. But before we jump into that, Jimmy, to answer your question about YouTube. To sign out of YouTube and then sign back in as Fade to Black Radio, I just checked the member list, and Jimmy Church, that name isn't on it, but your Fade to Black account is.
But I have how can I sign out? Switch account. Okay, so Fade to Black Radio. Okay, all right, boom. I'm in here now. Am I in here as Fade to Black Radio? So then, I got my I got my alien. Okay, so in other words, everybody knows one of my other fake accounts. See, I'm out there snooping and I didn't even know it. Okay.
You just got to listen to the youngin' here.
Okay. Yeah, I've got so many YouTube channels that run under other names. At least that one says Jimmy Church, so you know it's me. But in the future, I'm out there lurking, commenting, posting.
Now I'm nervous. Terry, thank you so much for the super sticker. I deeply appreciate it. Jimmy,
my name is like UAP rules or something like that. That's another one that I have. And so everybody just thinks I'm one of them.
Oh, there you go. You gotta infiltrate. Okay, so let's talk about the lady
I kid. People are taking me serious right now. It's UAP Joe is what it is. Okay, so
red.
Shag Harbor.
No, the lady in red. We already talked about Shag Harbor. No,
we got to go to Shag Harbor.
We already talked about Shag Harbor. That was the first one that we covered.
Charlie Red Star. We got too many reds. Let's stay in the red. So let's meet halfway.
All right. Sounds good. Okay.
Charlie Lady in Red Star. But Charlie Red Star, and now this is my thing with Charlie Red Star. Grant Cameron, right? And I get his book, and I've done a few stories. Man, my chair stopped rolling. I did a few shows with Grant about this. It's a crazy event that went on for a long time in Manitoba. And Grant back then in 1974, I was like 10 years old. Grant in 1974 was probably 20. He's probably 50. He was probably 50 years old, 1974. And so he's out there with his friends, and they have a sighting. Now, what originally happened was this couple, this was on April 10th, 1975. Bob and Elaine DeMart were walking from their farmhouse and to their private airfield in Carmen, saw a big red light coming at them. It had a dome on it. Yeah, this is from the news station that came out and did the news report on this. And it had a dome on the top. It was pulsating. It was red. They continued to see saucer-shaped objects a few more times. Then starting on May 7th, a month later, 1975, nightly sightings began that lasted for months. Grant Cameron, his friends, hundreds and hundreds of people. According to Grant, they were going out there. Cars were lined up on both sides of the road.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I wanted to be there.
What was so funny? So
Josie, you stop me every single show when I laugh because I'm laughing with you and the whole encounter. You're like, "What are you laughing at?" And I'm like, "I just think it's an awesome story."
Posted something. Jimmy's got something hanging off of his chin. So anyway, they're out there, they're partying, they're drinking, they're smoking weed, and it's like a thing to do on a summer night up in Manitoba. And they've got hundreds of cars, people's, sitting out and they're watching these lights come from the south up. Now, this was also this is on the United States-Canadian border, right? And right there were a lot of nuclear missile silos and things. So there was this nuclear connection that a lot of people talked about back then and still do today. So the couple's field and their private airport, right? It's wide open. Everybody parked right there. And they called this UFO Charlie Red Star. And it would skim over the trees. It would go to the horizon and come back, fly over the cars, fly overhead. And everybody got a great look, including Grant Cameron. So they had the local news, the TV station. It was like a big deal back then. So they show up and they're filming this. And Grant says that this film is one of the most incredible pieces of footage that were ever caught. But it was moving so fast that there's blank spots in between frames, if you know what I mean, right? It wasn't picking everything up. But there you go. And I think that's what this photograph from personal files. Okay, where did you get these images from? Because they look like the film that the TV station shot.
Yeah, these are from the TV station, but I found some still shots online. Nature
Okay.
Cam, thank you so much. That is so funny. It says $1 for your Ramen Mobile RV, $4 so Jimmy can buy a YouTube for Dummies book. Thanks, Nature Cam.
I mean, friends like you, right? Okay, so now, but here's the deal. Now, this is where you got to go in and you've got to peel back the onion layers a little bit and look at this area, because it wasn't just Charlie Red Star. And so let me share a few other things. You had back Charlie Red Star in 1975. You had the couple, the Diamonds. Back on May 20th, 1967, you had Stefan. This is all in the same area.
Right.
Okay. So you had Stefan Mcloid. March 4th, 1977, there was a Mr. S. Mr. S. was driving.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, Miss. That was good. That was good. I got that. He was driving eastward towards his farm near sundown when he saw a vibrating and shimmering oval source of light about 5 meters directly in front of him. It's 15 feet. It made no noise and did not look to be solid. He continued driving and came upon 3, air quotes, people standing on the road in front of him. He said they were about 5 feet tall and shaped like bowling pins. He also said they had bulbous heads, a narrow neck, and a flared body like a skirt. No features were visible. He couldn't brake and drove right over them. Okay. He said that he felt no impact and that they seemed to disappear when they touched his front bumper. Okay. Then we have October 9th, 1989, right there in Manitoba. A family was visiting from the Fort White Nature Center at 2:50 p.m. in the afternoon when they saw a white boomerang-shaped object hanging in the air over Winnipeg. The children were told to get into the car so they wouldn't see or get frightened by the craft. As the adults watched, the object slowly rotated and showed a bulge on its underside and then flew away. On November 1st, 1992, Karen, a nurse living in Winnipeg, was wakened at about 2 a.m. by a loud thump on her door. She got up and found 2 little people of about 3.5 feet tall in her living room. They had large round eyes, but no other features. They wore long white gowns or robes. They told her through telepathy that they wanted to take her for a ride into space. Karen said that she was next in a large hangar-like room that contained a cigar-shaped craft, and she and the 2 beings hopped right in. Yeah, those are her words. She saw a control room. She saw a control room with chairs, screens, and buttons. The creatures pushed the buttons, and she soon saw so many stars on the screen. Suddenly, she found herself back in her bedroom.
But mostly Space has a question. Did Karen ask to speak to their manager?
Oh man, you guys are quick. I let it hang. I let it hang out there for just enough to make sure you guys are on your toes. Just making sure. I love that. Get out of the car. Get out. You're in my car. I'm calling the police. Okay. But this, and see, here's when we talk about Manitoba in general, there have been just over 2,000 reports of unidentified flying objects over Manitoba in the past 200 years.
Yeah.
In Manitoba. And dating back to, are you ready? The first reported UFO? 1792.
1792.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing.
Yep. And this is what fascinates me so much about Canada and unless you've been to Manitoba. Okay, so that whole stretch from if you're in the United States, you would understand what I'm saying. From Wisconsin to Washington, right? That straight line, right? That is so sparsely populated. Just because it's Canada doesn't mean it's more populated than North Dakota, right? It's not. There's just a line there. And there are a few cities, just like there are on the other side of the border in the United States. But basically, that's just wide open land. Wide open. And
beautiful.
There's nothing up there but moose, elk, bears.
And Bigfoot.
And Bigfoot.
Did you know, Jimmy, did you know, because this blew my mind. Also, Roger, thank you so much. It says, I love that the UFO stories have short aliens. Me too.
And white dresses, too.
It's always the woman in white, but luckily for today, it's going to be the woman in red, the lady in red to be specific. But what's really interesting when it comes to Bigfoot in Canada is that it is illegal to kill a Sasquatch in British Columbia.
Is that right?
That's right. It is a fact. So in the 1800s, a man asked for permission to kill the wild man of Home Lake, and the response was a firm no, as it is illegal to shoot Sasquatch.
We have 12% of our audience is pissed off about Wayne Gretzky, and that's according to Christina's poll. 12% still pissed off about Wayne Gretzky. Not my fault, man. Blame it on Edmonton. Blame it on the Indianapolis Racers, the hockey team that grabbed him. So it's not my fault. I didn't do it. A lot of Canadians watching the show today.
Yes. Let's go Canada.
No means no, Jimmy. Okay.
Just like with trying to shoot Bigfoot. It's illegal.
The lady in red. Let's go there because I want to also get to hold on. Oh, we got to do Loop Garou.
Oh, this is such a fun story. Should we do that one first?
I would love to.
Okay,
I would love to.
All right, awesome. Brian, thank you so much. It says, people who are short or bald like Cristina or me have more alien DNA than the rest of y'all.
Yeah. I'm kind of going with that. You would have thought, though, Cristina, that when I was your age, I assumed, I'm in my 20s, I got long flowing hair and things, that everybody, once you get to 40, you're bald, right? It's going to be falling out and things. And
getting there.
I've got the gnarliest hair at my age. who would have thought that you would have gone bald before me? And all of my friends that I went to high school with, Cristina, bald.
Dang.
Gray, if they got anything left, and bald. I'm like, what happened? I got my gray. You can see the gray streaks. I'm proud, but I'm not bald. So
Well, there's no bald with me, not yet, but I am short and I drive a huge truck. I'm 5 feet tall, so it's like really crazy. And I'll like kind of jump out of the car and people are like, "You drive that?" And I said, "Heck yeah." It's that kind of like that testosterone level for me.
do you have
There you
like
go.
a Ford F-150?
Sometimes. I'm just kidding. No, but it's big. Okay, so let's jump over to the lady in red. So I think in almost
No,
all of the mysteries that we do, with
Loop
all of the
Loop Garou. Loop Garou.
Okay, so what's very interesting about the Loop Guru story is that when I first came across this, because when it comes to Canada, I don't know much about the country and I didn't know much about the legends and the cryptids. But when I came across that word, the first thing that came to mind was Louisiana's werewolf, which is called the Rougarou, which came from a French word, the Loup Guru.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
That's a nice little nugget right there. Okay, I did not know that. I did not know that. No, that's a good nugget.
Thank you.
And yes, the Loup Garou is a French Canadian thing, and so Louisiana, which is French, right?
Mhm.
So that's a French American thing.
Yeah, when the French coloners went to Louisiana, they had brought that story with them because the Loup Garou is originally French, and then they brought it to Canada. They brought it to Louisiana, and then the name changed from Loup Garou to Rougarou, which is a very fun name.
It's a great story, and the origin story behind it, and who they are. So yeah, let's get into that.
Okay, so what I do want to mention though is that where the originals are is in New Orleans. So they don't look like the werewolves in the bayou, which is comical, which is for those that didn't catch my joke, the originals is a TV show. A really, really awesome TV show about vampires, werewolves, witches. It's great. So for those that have watched it, probably got my very dry joke. But let's just get into this.
You're talking about True Blood?
No, it's called The Originals.
Oh, the original. Oh, the originals. The originals was great.
It was so good. A bunch of great seasons. The ending was fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
Really
yeah.
good.
Okay.
So, moving on over. The Loup Garou is a werewolf found in French Canadian folklore. And according to the stories, this is very interesting about their particular folklore when it comes to Canada, is that the creature is not always a wolf or dog, but can also become a calf, a small ox, a pig, a cat, or even an owl. The transformation can last as long as 101 days, with the victim transforming into the creature every evening and walking the countryside in animal form. The spell will last until someone recognizes the individual while they are transformed and can draw blood from the animal. If the spell is broken, no one can ever speak of the incident in case of it coming back. The Loup Garou is believed to be a cursed man, and in the French Canadian tradition, a Loup Garou is often guilty of not being a good Christian. For example, people who do not confess during Easter could be cursed to become werewolves.
Uh-oh. I've never confessed during Easter. There it is. There it is, right there. Right there. This is a great piece of folklore right here.
It is.
I had no idea that there were French lichens running around. You're right about the originals, though. That part escaped me, and I didn't. Of course, there's the connection with New Orleans. I didn't realize it until now. But we are talking about a werewolf, a lichen, male, by the way, that was the other thing, Cristina, in your research into this. There's no female loop gurus.
I didn't come across that. No, I had no idea.
It's a guilty man. It's a dude that's guilty of something, that has lied, that hasn't confessed to it, and that is the origin of the spell. No mention of any women.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. I just found that part very, very interesting. And okay, so one last thing before we move on to the lady in red, that in order to break the spell, a friend of yours has to recognize you while you're a werewolf.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah, not you as you. They have to see you, right. You're a werewolf. You got the fangs, right, and you're right. You're doing your stuff, and you have to have a friend go, Bob.
Is that you, buddy?
Yeah. And then they have to shoot you or stab you. They have to draw blood, right? And then the spell, and so then Bob comes out. Oh, thank you, bro. Right. So you come out of it. You're never going to talk about this again. I'm not. No, we're not. Right. And that's how the spell's broken. Yeah, it's great. It's a fantastic story.
It's very unique. I have not come across another type of myth or legend that follows the same storyline as this one, where you have to recognize them in order for the curse to be broken. And it's also got to be someone that you trust enough that isn't scared of you, knowing that you can shapeshift. Because as this legend goes, it's not just werewolves. It can also be pigs, little ox, owls as well.
Yeah. Joe just said bonjour. It's funny. Bob, bonjour.
Bonjour. If you are enjoying this show, please hit the like button so that we can get to 100 likes. It really does help the YouTube algorithm. So if you're having fun, or if you're Canadian, or if you want to visit Canada, hit the like button.
Yep. Forget about Wayne Gretzky's not an issue.
No.
Here in the United States, you think it's an issue. We don't even talk about Wayne Gretzky anymore. And there you go. Okay.
So let's talk about the next one. I'm going to pick this one.
The lady in red.
No, saving that one for later. No, forget it. We're talking about the Headless Valley.
What is the Headless Valley?
Okay, this is a really cool story, and actually the one that I wanted to start today's show with, but that's okay. So in 1908, Willie and Frank Mcloid went to the Nahanni Valley to find gold during the Klondike Gold Rush, like the Klondike bar. Well, we're going to get into that a little bit later. And they were never heard from again. And it would be 2 years later when their bodies were found, both without their heads. So today, the lost Mcloid mine has become a legend onto itself, and it is believed to have as many as 20 people that have lost their lives while attempting to search for the mine. But this isn't the only story of headless bodies to come from the valley.
What?
Yeah. Martin Jorgensen went to the valley in 1917, also looking for gold. And he would send out letters stating that he found the gold, but then his cabin burned down to the ground. His body was found in ashes and without a head. Then in 1922, John O'Brien, a First World War veteran, was found hunched over a pile of timber with a matchbox in his hand. And then it was as if he had suddenly died while lighting a fire also in this area.
What about his head? What about his
head? In this case, his head was still there, but it was a very suspicious death. He was about to light a fire, but he's hunched over the wood.
Right.
And there was never a fire that was lit. Then in 1945, another miner, this one coming from Ontario, he went to the valley and his body was found in a sleeping bag, but his head wasn't attached. So
Really?
Mhm. So it's been believed that since around 1908, 44 people have either died or disappeared. But we are aware that when it comes to national forests or valleys such as this one, those numbers are usually a lot higher than recorded. And I mean, for instance, is missing 411, Dave Politis, and all of his work that he does when it comes to national parks and forests. People sometimes what he might believe to be very, very odd things, but so many more people go missing than what is reported because it makes the whole national park look bad. You know what? It wasn't 44 people that have gone missing in 100 and something years. It's actually been like 3 or 400. You still want to go? You still want to pay that parking pass? Probably not.
It's an actual place.
Yeah, Headless Valley. Well, I mean,
Headless Valley is an actual place.
it's
The
pretty
Honey
cool.
National
Pretty
Park
cool.
Reserve. I'm looking at it right here in Canada. Ah, man.
Here is a picture of this valley.
Yeah, that's
And
just looking at that. It's an actual Headless Valley.
yeah,
So
this is so awesome. I mean, I love teaching you stuff, Jimmy. This blew my mind when I came across this story, mainly just because the fact that it's called Headless Valley is spooky enough, and yet people still go. And this was the name came along during their type of gold rush, the Klondike Gold Rush. And then I thought, after reading this story, the theme song or like the slogan, "What would you do for a Klondike bar?" I'm
right,
like, "Hold up. Back that up.
right.
Where do you risk your life for a Klondike bar like these people risked their lives for the gold rush, and then when their body was found, there was no head." And I'm thinking, this is terrible.
Yeah. It is beautiful, but I'm going to go on the record and repeat myself again. There is nothing around here. There's
Nope.
not a city, a town, a road. There's nothing around the Headless Valley. The closest city is Fort Simpson, and that looks like that's 70 miles away. And there's the town of Wrigley, again,
And
about 70 miles away.
and
And
in this
zoom in on Wrigley here. Population 25. No, I'm lying. 25 houses. 25
yeah,
houses. That's it. There's no roads. So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
Wow.
really odd. And when we're looking at these photos, there looks to be like a lot of granite, and that, just like with so many missing 411 cases of missing people and Bigfoot sightings, they happen during around areas that have a consistent amount of granite and a consistent amount of quartz. This is a repeating theme across the United States and Canada. And if we look here, we're also seeing that as well. What's the correlation when it comes to these types of rocks and missing people and even Bigfoot sightings?
Yeah. It's one of the great questions. Why do indigenous cultures that, before electricity, before everything else, right, that they were drawn to these areas, these specific areas, um, orbs and spirits and vortexes and sacred ground? And with modern technology, we can go and say, well, okay, gold, silver, granite, fault lines that can run through there, underground aquifers that would cause a heightened sense of EM measurements and ball lightning, all of these things. But cultures didn't know that 1,000 years ago. These
Or
were
did they?
that's my point. They didn't accidentally find these spaces and make them sacred. It wasn't by accident. They were drawn there, and it seems that other things are drawn there too as well. Yeah, I'm absolutely convinced of that.
And in a lot of legends, when a place is sacred, it's because the tribe people are told that it is sacred from their ancestors. Not for the most part, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but for the most part, they don't just walk up somewhere and be like, "Yeah, this place is sacred." No, they've been told that through the generations, and they respect those areas. So that is something that makes me question who told them that
Well,
it was
okay,
sacred.
you know what I want to do? I'm going to do this one day. I'm going to get a giant map that I can poke pins into, right? Colored pins, right? I want to be able to do that and walk in. And so one day, you have all your data, right? And you start poking the headless pins into Headless Valley and to see what's really going on. How many other decapitated bodies are in Canada? Let's poke the pins in, right? And let's step back and see what's up and why Headless Valley has this concentration of, you said 44 bodies, right?
That's what they said, but I think it's probably so much more than that.
Yeah. Isn't that a big number?
But since 1908, no.
That's a big. How many headless bodies in Los Angeles since
No,
19?
no, no. This is the amount of disappearances and bodies found, not just headless bodies.
Okay, so
Yeah,
what a
you make that very clear.
yeah, perfect show for the black beanie today. Perfect show. So, how many headless bodies do we
We
do?
don't know.
Do we
We
have?
don't know, and I don't think that information would be made public, the amount.
We need a head count.
I see what you did there. Deranged Lunatic, thank you so much. It says, "What would you do if you got your head back?" Canada.
Run.
But
Run.
hopefully it's not, like, on backwards,
No, I would trade it for Wayne Gretzky. That's what I would do. I would get Wayne Gretzky back. Okay, Lady in Red. Let's go. Let's get.
All right.
We got to, because we've got to do the abandoned town.
We might have to do a part 2, Jimmy.
Don't. Okay, so let's get to the woman in red.
Okay. So let me pull up a picture here. A picture that is believed to be taken of the woman, and you can make up your own mind what you think is going on here, but it's a pretty bizarre story. Actually, it's a very short story. But there's one in particular that really makes me laugh.
That's not real. Is that real?
Okay, well, this is not only just a visual aid, but it's believed to be a real picture. But let me go ahead and just read the story.
Okay.
The woman in red is one of Vancouver's most famous ghosts. According to legend, she haunts the historic Fairmont Hotel, Vancouver, at 900 West Georgia Street, built in 1939. Walking the top floors in her elegant red gown, she occasionally stops at the window to stare at the city. Several people claim to have seen her apparition, and according to Ghost of Vancouver, a website that catalogs Metro Vancouver's spookiest tales. This is the funny story. It goes, once a Japanese family that checked into a room on the 14th floor called the front desk to ask whether their room had been double booked. They described seeing the lady in red in the room, which had caused them much confusion. But this was taken by a local elevator mechanic who claimed to have taken this photo. He is Vancouver's Scott Graham, saying he was working on a top floor at the private residences at Hotel Georgia, just around the corner from Fairmont, when he decided to take a cell phone photo of the historic hotel where he also does work.
Yeah, it's a spooky picture. I mean, it could be anything, but it's the Fairmont and it's the lady in red. Her name is Jenny Pearl Cox, and she was a socialite of good standing there in Vancouver. but she died in a car accident in 1944 by the front doors of the Fairmont Hotel. Dun, dun, dun.
Sounds pretty spooky. No, I had no idea.
Yeah, that's pretty spooky. So now that's Vancouver's Lady in Red.
That is, but then we also
Yeah, there's more. There's more. I did my own research into this. All Cristina, gives me, this is her show notes. Lady in Red Church. That's all you got. So, how many ladies in red? Lady, is it lady plural?
ladies.
It is ladies, right? It's not lady. Okay, how many ladies in red do you have?
Just one. Just that one.
Oh, I've got 3.
Oh my gosh, share them with us. I want to hear.
The First Ontario Concert Hall, informally known as Hamilton Place in Hamilton, Ontario, is haunted by a lady in red that also weeps red tears. That's right. She's been reported by staff and theater goers. Red tears. Yeah, that's good stuff right there. That's good stuff. And then we have in Toronto, Toronto's Lower Bay Transit Station has been closed since 1966, but has numerous reports of a lady in red. According to witnesses, the ghost appears distraught as it glides without feet or eyes. Yeah, right. Furthermore, workers claim to have seen her refusing to go back to work. They see her and they're like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. Reassign me. Lay me off. Fire me. I'm not going back in the tunnel. Lady in red is in there.
And that seems to be a consistent theme when certain locations are haunted, very specifically hotels, that when employees come through and they see a ghost, they're like, nope, I am clocking out forever.
Yeah.
Don't want to deal with ghosts.
Before we get to my fishing village, we should do a part 2.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Officially, Jimmy, we're doing a part 2 next week, okay?
Yeah, mysteries of Wayne Gretzky. We can do. Have you Googled Gretzky yet? Have you gone that far? The ghost of Wayne Gretzky. No. Haunts downtown Edmonton every night. 000. Okay. All right.
Just really rub it in.
And the email. Send all the email to Cristina at mysterieswiththehistory.com. Okay. Is that a real email address?
It's not mine.
Use that one. The fishing village of the Anjikuni. This story is legit, number one, but I have often thought about what if, what if because Cristina, have you ever gone into an abandoned house? Have you ever done that? Okay. One of the things that you're hoping you will find when you go in that abandoned house, and tell me the truth, what is it that you want to find? You want to be able to walk into the kitchen and see like canned goods, right?
No, I want to see treasure.
Well, treasure too. Okay. But that's what you want to see, right? And that's exciting. You never see that stuff. You just go through the abandoned house. And I've done it many, 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 many times. It's fun. Great videos on YouTube of people going into abandoned houses. I love that. Abandoned mansions, right? Have you ever watched those videos? I
haven't.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen those types of videos.
Oh, they're great. They're great. Well, anyway, that's what happened back in 1930. It was in November, on a cold November day. Joe LaBelle, a Canadian fur trapper, out doing his thing, comes upon this fishing village of Anjikuni, And as he walks up, he sees smoke from a smokestack, right? Okay. That's all good. But as he walks into the village, it's silent. Nobody talking, right? No kids playing, no noise, no human activity. He found that the village was completely deserted. Completely. He starts walking right now. This sounds like episode 1 of the Twilight Zone, right?
It does.
It does, right? Where you walk, you walk into town and you're walking up Main Street and in the middle of the day and you're expecting people, things, noise, activity, right? And this town was completely deserted. So he walks through and he starts knocking on doors, right? And seeing things that implied that somebody was home. Something's going on. Nobody answered it. So he walks into the first house, and it's completely new. Food, weapons, right? This is a hunting, fishing village, right? He sees guns.
Yeah, he sees food over the fires. He sees like needles still going through cloth, but everything was left behind.
Yes,
there was nobody there.
Whatever anybody was doing, they just stopped at that moment and walked away. He found a burnt meal in another house. Somebody was in the middle of cooking and left it on the fire. Right? You see, that's pretty crazy. Now, here's the other thing. There were reportedly the last count from people that were familiar with the town, about 30 people living there, men, women, and children, right? Families. It's a small fishing village. But they were never found. Nobody has come up with an answer. There was something unexpected happened there. I don't know. UFO abduction. Something else came into town and scared everybody away so much so that they didn't come back. But
see, that is too. That's really hard to say in the sense of they depended on their sleigh dogs because it gets incredibly cold in that area. But all of the dogs were still tied up and they actually all starved to death when LaBelle went to go check on this town. And leaving their dogs is like leaving their livelihood.
Well,
they
leaving
need
your
those.
guns. Leaving your guns.
Leaving food on the fire. I mean, all of these things.
Well, if you're gonna go run, something has scared you out of town, and you're taking aren't you taking your gun with you?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, you are, right? They left their weapons behind. Aren't you going to take food with you? They left all of their food behind. They left their dogs behind. Completely unexplained to this day. That is a real mystery with a history right there.
And we could do a whole show on it, but just to give a little bit more brief details on this is that the police team eventually determined that these townfolk had been missing for about 8 weeks before LaBelle arrived. And they never found out why the entire village had evacuated the area. But it gets even weirder. There are some alleged stories of the RCMP, again, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police officers, reporting seeing mysterious pulsing lights in the sky over the lake during that time frame.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. So could it have been an alien abduction? I think at this point with this story that has been racking people's minds since 1930, everything's on the table because the fact that they just walked away from their town and never came back, leaving everything untouched, practically frozen in time, is a little too crazy. But we've seen stories like this, Jimmy, in other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And don't you do the same thing? I mean, this is what I do. I'll give you another example. In a weird. No, you know what? I'll come back to it.
No. Say it. Say it.
No,
Say it. Say it. Say it.
I'll come back to it. Well, I was going to say, but maybe not. Russia, the Russian case with Bigfoot. Now I'm brain farting. Why didn't you just let me go? I could have just gone to what I really wanted to say.
Well, then just say what you really want to say.
The Russian Yeti, the Bigfoot with the campers in 1959, the hikers, the Russian hikers, Dyatlov Pass, right? What scared them so much that they went out of their tents in the middle of the night, without their clothes on, without shoes on, right? It's the same thing here. So I always go into that mindset. What would scare me for me to run down the street of my neighborhood with my pajamas on and no shoes? What would take me out of my house? Right? That's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, you hunker down, you pull the shades and lock the doors. This is where you're safe. Right? You don't leave your house and your guns and your food, right? And your dogs behind and go that way. What is that scary? What is it? It must be terrifying. Whatever caused the people in Dyatlov Pass, and this isn't the only town that's been abandoned.
No.
There's been many, but if you just flip it around and put it inside of your head, what would make you run out of your house buck naked?
It would have to be something unknown, really, to the mind.
Yeah, that's where I'm going. It's got to be the ultimate. I mean, the ultimate thing, whatever it is.
An ultimate terror.
Yeah, the ultimate terror.
Ultimate threat.
Here it is. Whatever is the scariest thing to you in your id, whatever it is, that's what it is.
Life-size cockroaches, like human-sized cockroaches.
That's what would chase you out of your house.
Yeah. There's no question.
No. Cristina, thank you so much. What a great show. This might be my favorite one.
Well, just you wait for next week. Mysteries of Canada Part 2.
Wayne Gretzky is back. Bye, everybody. I'll see you tonight on Fade to Black. It is Fader night. It's open lines all night long. Cristina, you're the best. Great audience. Thank you, Wayne Gretzky. I'll see everybody tonight.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for everyone watching this show live. Thank you to all of my amazing moderators, all the super chats, super stickers, YouTube members, and Patreon subscribers. If you enjoyed today's conversation and you want to continue adding your stories, your insight, join the Discord server, join the after show chat where you can speak with me and almost 1,000 other people who want to hear your thoughts and input on today's show. Don't forget, next week is going to be the Mysteries of Canada Part 2 because there's still so much more to cover. Out of all the things that we talked about today, which case or story was your favorite? I think for myself, I really liked this last one. I think just a bunch of people abandoning their homes, their entire village, their livelihood for no understandable reason. It really allows my imagination to run. I can muse about something like this, write an entire book if I had the time as well. But I think that one might have to be one of my favorite stories or things that we talked about today. Tomorrow is Strange Paradigms, where Micah Hanks will be co hosting with me, looking at all the strange and mysterious news from around the world. So definitely make sure to hit the notification bell on YouTube so that you do not miss the live show. I want to wish you all a wonderful day. Be safe. And remember, puck wedgies. No, I'm just kidding. Remember to keep your eyes on the skies.